Muy buenas tardes a todos. Bienvenidos a esta nueva conferencia que hacemos en colaboración con la Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona y su máster en Global Studies. Muchas gracias de nuevo a Blay y a David por haber hecho posible este ciclo de conferencias. Hoy tenemos la segunda, también a Esther Torres, que hacía mucho tiempo que no la teníamos con nosotros y siempre es un placer tenerla cuando tratamos el tema de Corea con nosotros, pero hacía ya años que no teníamos esta suerte, así que bueno, hoy es el momento oportuno. Antes de que se me olvide, la sesión será en inglés, con el profesor Parc, hablará en inglés, pero todos aquellos que quieran hacer preguntas a través del chat en castellano, no hay ningún problema, ya las traduciremos nosotros. Lo importante es que nadie se quede sin preguntar por una cuestión de problemas del idioma. Así que si alguien quiere preguntar en inglés o en otra lengua, no hay ningún problema, que ya nos encargamos de traducirlo. Y nada, darle las gracias también al profesor Parc. Professor Parc, thank you very much for accepting this invitation. And unfortunately, it's the second time that we couldn't make it in person, and we cannot do it face to face. But the most important is to have you in this webinar today. Así que nada, sin más le doy la palabra a Blay Warner, que hará un poco de maestro de ceremonias junto al profesor David también. Y nada, cuando quieras, Blay.
Muchas gracias, Rafa. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be in Casa Asia one more month in this lecture series on Global East Asian Studies. Thanks are due always to our second home, to Casa Asia, for its support, organizing, along with the MA in Global East Asian Studies at the Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona and the Gregal Research Group, this lecture series. I welcome everyone to this session, to this online seminar. It's great to be here again, sharing with you this space for knowledge and discussion on East Asia and its impact, its influence and dissemination over the world. To the audience, please feel free to send to our lecturer, Professor Jimmyn Parc, during his lecture, your questions and comments using the chat for the final discussion. This is the second talk of our lecture series of 6 seminars that we have planned until July 1st, one per month, on different topics related to East Asia, from the environment and climate change, as for instance, the lecture that Professor Christopher Dent delivered before the Easter break. Now you have this lecture online on YouTube. To the economic presence of China in Latin America, Japanese international relations and global governance, and cultural issues related to Japanese and South Korean popular culture and cultural industries, like today with our distinguished lecturer, Professor Jimmyn Parc. All these lectures follow the main drivers of this new paradigm on global East Asian studies that we are developing at the Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona, at the UAB, a theoretical paradigm that joins the traditional field of knowledge of regional studies, area studies, a field of knowledge shaping the geopolitical order of the Cold War, which is radically different from the international order of the international scenario that we have nowadays in the world, and the emerging paradigm of global studies, which is being developed nowadays from disciplines such as global governance, global economy, transnational and transcultural studies, global history and literature, global media, and so. In the last decades, East Asia's cultural, economic, and geopolitical importance has overflowed its regional limits and became a main agent of global influence, transregional, and international. East Asia, that is China, South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, for us, has become a real driving force that shapes the world with economic and financial flows, social influences, and cultural trends that spreads worldwide, far beyond its traditional regional borders, which, by the way, were defined by Western powers in the last 150 years. This overflowing of East Asia throughout the world is the topic and the approach of our MA program on Global East Asian Studies. And because of that, before introducing to you our lecturer, Professor Jimmyn Parc, allow me to give the floor to my colleague, Professor David Sauri from the UAB, coordinator of our MA program, in order to briefly introduce you our study program. So now we're going to switch into Spanish. David, the floor is yours. Adelante, cuando quieras.
Thank you very much, Blay. Muchas gracias. Efectivamente, como el profesor Guarné ha dicho, este acto forma parte de las labores de difusión del máster en estudios globales de Asia Oriental. Bueno, pues esto es un poco, voy a ser muy breve, es un máster oficial, un máster que justo este año está en su primera edición. Es un máster de 60 créditos, ECTS, con un año de duración. En estos momentos estamos haciendo la preinscripción para el curso 21-22 y, como ha dicho el profesor Blay Guarné, es un máster que no es sobre estos países, sino más bien sobre la influencia y el impacto global que tienen estos países en el mundo actual. Pues estamos todos convencidos de que estamos ante la región del mundo más dinámica en muchos sentidos en estos momentos. Y esto es un poco lo que intentamos reflejar en el máster, es este dinamismo y sus distintas dimensiones. Perdón, desde las dimensiones, digamos, hay un módulo en el máster que se llama Productos Culturales, Discursos Representacionales e Identidades Transnacionales, que es todo digamos, el paquete más de cultura, ¿no? De cultura de Asia Oriental, en todas sus representaciones, y hay un módulo de geopolítica, economía y medio ambiente, y hay otro módulo de política y sociedad. Un poco lo que intentamos es ver a través de todos estos distintos elementos cómo la influencia de estos países, la influencia de Asia Oriental en el mundo se está manifestando, ¿no? Tenemos que decir que es un máster que cuenta con la participación de muchos profesionales expertos en todos estos ámbitos que acabo de comentar. Y es un máster que también está dirigido a un amplio espectro de profesionales. Como no es un máster sobre estos países, no requerimos el conocimiento de ninguna lengua asiática de manera obligatoria. Es un máster que se imparte en español y en inglés, pero no se requiere conocimientos de lenguas orientales. Y es un máster que también cuenta con como todo máster, con un trabajo de fin de máster, que en nuestro caso hay una vertiente más de investigación y otra vertiente más de trabajo en instituciones, y para nosotros es una gran fortuna poder contar con el apoyo de instituciones como la propia Casa Asia, que ha sido muy importante para que este máster pueda tener, para que los alumnos de este máster puedan tener algún tipo de contacto con instituciones relacionadas con este ámbito geográfico, pero también con otras instituciones como el Instituto Confucio de Barcelona, o la Fundación Japón, o la Fundación del Instituto del Rey Sejong de Barcelona y Corea del Sur, ¿no? Por tanto, intentamos que los alumnos tengan una formación muy interdisciplinar en los distintos aspectos que acabo de comentar, y que digamos, plasmen todo esto en un trabajo de fin de máster que, repito, pueden hacerlo si quieren en la vertiente de investigación o si quieren en colaboración con una de estas instituciones que acabo de comentar. Finalmente, decir que este año hemos empezado con 17 alumnos, mejor dicho, tendría que decir me parece que son 15 alumnas y 2 alumnos, o sea que es un máster que tiene una ratio de género bastante sesgada hacia el elemento, hacia las mujeres, ¿no? Como también un poco pasa con el grado, ¿no? Y ha empezado de una manera, pues, con mucho entusiasmo, tanto por parte de profesores como de estudiantes, en un contexto muy difícil como ha sido este año, sobre todo por el tema de estas prácticas o de estos trabajos de fin de máster en instituciones, que ha costado mucho arrancar porque la situación con la pandemia no es nada fácil, como podrán imaginar, pero que bueno, estamos muy contentos de cómo se está desarrollando, y nada, y todo el mundo que esté interesado, que valore ampliar su formación con este tipo de estudios, pues puede acceder a la página web, y ahí encontrará toda la información pertinente, y repito que está abierto el periodo de preinscripción para el curso 21-22. Nada más, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, David. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much for explaining, for talking about our MA program. So it is now a real pleasure to introduce you to Professor Jimmyn Parc from the National University of Seoul and Sciences Po Paris, who is going to talk about one of the main areas of expertise of our MA program, which is popular culture, cultural industries, and international relations from East Asia, and in this case, focus on K-pop. Professor Jimmyn Parc is a visiting lecturer at Sciences Po Paris and researcher at the Institute of Communication Research at Seoul National University in Korea. He holds 2 PhD from the University of Paris Sorbonne, Paris 4th, and the Seoul National University. He has published several scholarly papers and conducted a number of research projects related to film and music industries and how they are facing the contemporary challenges of digitalization. We have also the pleasure of having with us today as a discussant Professor Esther Torres Simon, PhD in Translation and Intercultural Studies, specialist in Korean literature and translation exchanges. She has been lecturer at Chonbuk National University and at the University of Yonsei, both in South Korea. And she is currently visiting professor at Universitat Rovira i Virgili here in Spain, and the secretary of the Spanish Association of East Asian Studies, AEAO. Many thanks, Professor Torres, Esther, for accepting our invitation. It is great to have you as a discussant today. Thank you. So let's talk about this session. In this session, Professor Jimmyn Parc will talk about Korean music companies and how in the last decades, K-pop industry has actively embraced the challenges of digitalization in an innovative and receptive ways that has been able to make a substantial difference in the international outlook of music industry. So many thanks, Professor Parc, for accepting our invitation second time. Next time will be face-to-face in person in Barcelona, for sure. And it is a pleasure to host your lecture. Please, the floor is yours, Professor Parc.
Thank you very much, David and Raphael. It is my pleasure to deliver a lecture at Asia. So today I'm going to talk about, K-pop, as you already explained. All right. So today I'm going to talk about why Korean, K-pop became really popular across the world and what is the core message. Right. So, we already know that, K-pop became really popular across the world. And then, people, they always want to know how big the music market is. Okay, so here you can see that the top 10 music market in the world of 2020. So as you see here, the number one is USA, and the number two, that's Japan. Interest me, number 6, that is South Korea. And then also on the right side, you can see the population. I just put it population because some people believe that population is related to the market size. So as you see here, Korea is pretty big, okay, in terms of the market size. Now, the interesting thing is, like, if you go, trace back to 2004, as you can see here, Korea's music market size is really small, okay? So it was almost 28th in the world. So that means basically within almost, 22 decades, Korea's music market size has increased significantly. So this is interesting why this kind of things happen and why K-pop became really, really, popular across the world. One interesting point, actually, according to EFPI, which is the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry. Okay, so they published some article and then they said in the world there are only 4 countries that export more music than import. Okay? Number 1, that is US, UK, Japan, and then in 2016, Korea joined this club. So basically, that means Korea export a lot of K-pop music to others. Another interesting point, okay, that is a comparison between J-pop and K-pop. So, like, when I was high school student in 1990s, we all listened to J-pop and we never expected K-pop became really, really popular. Another interesting thing is when J-pop was really popular in 1980s and 1990s, it was more like in East Asia. However, differently from J-pop, K-pop became popular not only in East Asia but also in other countries, in other continents. So this is very interesting, aspect. All right. In order to show, how different my approach is, I just want to highlight several existing studies. Okay, so there are a lot of papers that cover, why Korean K-pop became really, really popular across the world. Some people, they argue okay, usually K-pop is popular in Asian countries such as Japan and China. Okay. In fact, you have to think about the population. Of course, we know that China has a huge population. So if we just, click or check the number of clicks on YouTube, or if we check the number of people who listen to K-pop, of course, it can be biased. So in this case, what I did is I compared, the number of views on YouTube, and also I checked the population. So I divide them in order to get some kind of idea how many times people listen to it. Okay, so here you can see that if we compare, Japan and Asia, so this is basically except China and Korea. Okay, and then this is about Asia minus Japan. So I just want to know what happened. And also this is between for the age group between 15 and 29. Okay, so basically I assuming that the people who do enjoy K-pop, they are like between 15 years old and 29 years old. Of course, it can be varied. Okay. All right. So when you check, actually, the people from North America and Oceania, they listen to more K-pop than other areas. Okay. This is very interesting. Another thing, some people, they are arguing K-pop became popular because, K-pop is very transnational, and you can see there is a lot of things that is really hybrid. Okay, which means basically some people argue that in K-pop, the Korean band, they are using English lyrics sometimes. Okay. Some people, they said, okay, they dance just like Westerners. So what I'm saying is like, okay, when you say hybridity, you have to think about which in terms of what. It is more like music or lyrics. If you are arguing that K-pop became popular because we use a lot of, English lyrics, then you have to also think about J-pop and pop from Hong Kong, because actually they are also using English lyrics a lot. Okay. When it comes to music, some people, they argue in K-pop there's a lot of things like hip-hop, reggae, and then metal, and then ballad. But also this is not something unique for K-pop. Okay, basically combined, from here and there. Another thing, actually, a lot of people argue K-pop became really popular because this is the Korean government who support a lot financially. Okay, but you have to know one thing very interesting. Before 1990s, actually, the Korean cultural products such as K-pop, music, and dramas, it was under government control. So government actually didn't support K-pop, dramas, and then cinemas. So this is a little bit different. Recently, some people, they argue, no. Actually, if you see what is going on, Korean government, they are trying to give some kind of financial help for concert outside of Korea, or sometimes they do have some kind of concert or K-con. Okay, but you have to think about this one, right? It is like Korean government who are helping K-pop, or Korean government are using K-pop in order to increase the brand name of Korean government. So you have to think about, that kind of thing, right? Another thing, people, they argue the fandom for K-pop is really, really strong. There are a lot, they are really, really supportive. But also you have to think about cause and effect. In order to be in a strong fandom, you have to listen to or enjoy K-pop. Okay, so basically enjoying K-pop goes first, and once you like it, you became fans of K-pop. Okay, so you have to think about this one. Another one, people, they argue, it is more like SNS or the internet. They argue Korean K-pop use a lot of things, internet like Facebook, YouTube, and then Twitters. But my argument is, well, actually YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, it is kind of open to everybody. That means basically if there is some French singer or Spanish singer, if they want to do it, and they can use it. So this is not really specifically to Korean K-pop. All right, so basically these kind of things cannot explain a lot. Some people, they argue, okay, in K-pop, we can feel there is something really Korean, which is very different from others. They said Korea has very unique traditional culture. Also, Korea has very advanced, musicology, whatever. So they said they try to highlight something about Korea and Korean specific, trait. Okay? So we're going to go over, what is going on. In fact, in order to understand, my argument, I'm going to show you something, okay? I don't know how many of you actually love to enjoy classical music, okay? When it comes to classical music, basically those musics are made in East Western Europe, okay? Just Europe, from 1750 to 1820, okay? So this is it's very unique. I just wonder how many of you actually enjoy classical music. Okay, if you are a classical music lover, I'm just asking you, have you ever heard the terminology like A classical music, G classical music, and I classical music? Anyone?
Let's use a chat. No?
No. So basically that means you don't love classical music?
In capitals?
Okay, so I see there's a lot of no's, okay, which is fine because well, there's a good reason why, because I am the one who developed this terminology, okay? So here, A classical music means classical music produced or made in Austria. G classical music means classical music produced or made in Germany. I classical music means basically classical music produced or made in Italy. So I'm asking you, when you enjoy classical music, you listen to some music because they are from Italy, or they are from Germany, or they are from Austria. I just wonder if you distinguish the nationality when you listen to classical music. Probably not, okay? Now, let me count several music, okay? And then I'm asking you to guess the original nationality of these three musics, okay? So let's go the first one.
Baby, I'm no stranger to heartbreaking the pain of always being let go. And I know there's no making this right.
Okay, this is the first one, and then I'm going to turn the second one. Okay, this is the second one. Now, this is the third one. I think this is enough. Can you guess the nationality of these three musics? Okay, first, somebody said like the first one US, second Korea. K-pop. Okay, there's a good answer. Okay, the first one, Ines Santos. Okay, the first one is like USA, so basically American pop. The second one is Japanese J-pop, and the third one is K-pop. Yes, but I'm not sure if you understood. Okay, yes, exactly. Some of them are produced with Steve Aoki. Yes, exactly. So basically, which means those three musics actually, all of them are produced. They are sung by BTS, Korea K-band, okay, K-pop band. Interesting thing is like the first one is they sing in English 100%. The second one, this song name is Mic Drop, and then it is Japanese version, which means basically the lyrics is in Japanese. And the third one, it is a Mic Drop, the same song, but in English. Okay. However, the interesting thing is like if you check those three songs on iTunes, okay, they classify the first song as American pop, the second one they classify it as J-pop, and the third one as K-pop. Okay, so my argument is basically it's all sung by BTS, but because of the language difference, they distinguish this as K-pop, J-pop, and American pop. Is it okay or not? All right. Well, if you want to know, so basically that means, when people enjoy music, the nationality is not much related. Okay, it is not really important. When you are educated to listen to certain music, then in this case, you're looking for it. But, usually people just listen to it because they like the music. That's it. No nationality. Then what happened to K-pop? Why Korean K-pop became really, really popular? Actually, you have to understand what is going on in the global music industry. Okay, so here you can see the global record music industry revenues. Okay, so basically, a long time ago, like 2001, almost the revenue is coming from sales of physical albums. Okay, like a CD and cassette. As time goes by, you can see there is kind of download or other digital sources. Okay, and then recently there's one thing which is actually total streaming. Okay, it's more like a YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, this kind of things. So it has a lot of portion nowadays. So the music industry is changing. Okay, however, one interesting thing is people still they argue who sell more albums than others. Okay, you can see here nowadays the big portion of revenues are coming from the streaming and then download, not physical album sales. Okay, so basically the market is moving around and dynamic. Now, the interesting thing, we see that the streaming has grand portion for revenues, generating. Okay, so here the thing is like when they try to diffuse music, okay, they are using Facebook and Google and other internet media intermediaries. Which means basically it is not just music, but also you have to think about how they get spread away, okay, from one country. This means basically, okay, if diffusing some music is good for Google and Facebook, and then they are willing to diffuse these musics. Now, Google and Facebook, their revenue source is advertisement, which means basically the consumers or users, they have to click or watch the advertisement, okay, in order to attract attention from consumers or users. YouTube and Facebook, they have to upload something very attractive and interesting, right? One interesting point is if you go to Google YouTube, okay, you go to YouTube and then mostly if you try to Google both, check both J-pop and K-pop, on the right side, recommended video, you can see there are a lot of K-pop. Okay, this is actually related to copyright. J-pop asks YouTube, hey, you need to pay some, copyright fee. Korean K-pop, they said that we don't care about the copyright fee, we just want to share, and then you can use K-pop. And even the Korean companies, they open their own YouTube channels, and whenever they have new music, they just release it without any hesitation. On the other side, Japanese music companies like Johnny's, they have some kind of, hesitance. Of course, recently with RRC, it's another Japanese pop group, they changed a little bit, so they just released their music video. But still, if you go to YouTube and then try to find some, recent K-pop, and then you can see it's kind of hard to find. Right. So basically, something is going on, okay? The copyright, and then traditionally people, they don't want to share their music because they cannot make money, or sometimes they cannot generate much revenues. But one interesting thing is that like K-pop bands, they don't care about it. Okay, this is actually BTS. Okay, they just make some music. It's more like a mixtape, and then they share the link, and then they try to diffuse their music to everybody. Okay, without getting any money. This is very interesting. Okay, so this is more like a strategic movement, or they just abandon receiving some money. Copyright fee from others. Okay, you have to think about it. Another interesting thing is, for example, like they just release some music without receiving any money. However, this music became really, really popular in iTunes, and then people, they tried to buy BTS music, which actually released freely online. because this is like a try to support these groups, So some people, they just love BTS, and then although they can download freely from online, still they try to buy, those musics on the streaming service providers in order to support, BTS. Now, another interesting point is like the portion of global recorded music revenues. Okay, so again, this is music revenues. Okay, so if you see here, the revenues coming from a lot of portion is coming from streaming service, and then you can see here it is more like digital download. Okay, also physical album. So it gives some kind of impression that the music industry, they have to use streaming a lot. Okay. Also selling physical albums, okay? So because this is related to revenues. But another interesting point is actually the consumption, okay? So streaming, you can calculate how they use it, okay? For example, YouTube, they calculate the number of clicks. Okay? And then also on streaming service providers such as iTunes and then Spotify, you can see how many times they play the music, okay? So they can calculate it. Another interesting point is digital download, which include illegal and legal download, okay? Which means basically once you download, okay, actually you don't know how many times people listen to the music, okay? So if you calculate the revenue, maybe streaming service give more revenue than digital download. But when it comes to streaming, the consumption, you don't know exactly what is going on because, once you download the music and the service providers, they cannot check how many times you play and you listen to music, okay? So that means basically just, freely download will give you better effect, okay? In fact, if you have some kind of interview with, K-pop consumers, a lot of them, they said, they just download music from internet without paying anything. Some people call it like illegal download. Okay? But it seems like K-pop companies, they don't care about illegal download much. I will talk about that later. Okay. Right. So the music industry is kind of changing. Traditionally, there's artists, producer, and record labels, and manufacturer, and retailer, and consumers. Okay? Nowadays, because there is internet, and then there is internet music retailers and then providers such as Spotify and iTunes. So the music industry has changed significantly. However, still, we kept the same functions in the music industry. So there is creation, selection, production, distribution, and consumption. Okay? One interesting thing is like, traditionally in Western society, okay, the producers and music record labels, they try to go around, they visit some bar, and then if they heard, there's some band, they play really, really good music, and then they try to listen to it, and then they check if this is, good or not, commercially successful or not, and then once they figure it out, this is good, and they have contract. It's just like, the Epstein, found the Beatles in Manchester. Okay? However, in Japan, this is a little bit changed. Okay, basically, Japanese companies, they said, okay, instead of looking for the artist who has great potential, why don't we have some people and we give them training, and then we give them some kind of help so they can produce really, really good music. Okay, so this is the company who pick up some people who has great talent, and then they train them. Okay, the company trained the people, and then in the end, if the people, they are good, and then they began to do their career as a band or singer. Okay, Korean companies are advanced a little bit. Basically, the companies, they do something with the streaming service providers directly. So basically, they copy the Japanese system. So they try to figure it out. Some people with great talent, and they give some kind of training, and then they teach them how to dance. Company teach them how to speak English, and then how to do a bunch of things. Okay, and then they are the one who produce music, and then they are the one who distribute the music directly. Okay, especially this is why I said the Korean companies, they just open up their YouTube channel on YouTube directly, and then they just use it. Okay? So this is very different. one interesting point is like, if you know the relationship between Korea and Japan is more like a love and hate. Okay. Japanese government, they know that in 1980s and 1990s, J-pop was really popular, and all of a sudden it is not J-pop anymore, but it is K-pop that became really popular in Asian countries and others. Okay, so Japanese government, they try to figure out what happened to Korea, and then they did some kind of research. They came up with some kind of conclusion that it's that Korean government is intervening, and then they give a lot of subsidies to help K-pop. Okay, so they believe that this is behind the success of K-pop, there is Korean government. So Japanese government, they also try to do similar things, which is actually called Japan initiative. So Japanese government are ready to expend almost like $900 to support K-pop and related, contents. The result, I'm not sure if you know this guy. So PAPP. Okay, so he became really popular. When I visited Japan and I had chance with, to meet some governors, they said that, PAPP became really, really popular, just like, Gangnam Style, size Gangnam Style. They were so proud of it. I just wanted to know, why PAPP, this guy became really, really, popular. And then one thing I figured out, actually, it's not Japanese government's help, but it is actually Justin Bieber who tweeted this song. Once Justin Bieber tweeted this song, okay, and then this song became really viral in the world. Okay, so it's not really Japanese government support. Now, actually, in order to better understand what is going on with K-pop, you have to also understand the music industry with digitalization. Okay? There are two kinds of digitization I distinguished. The first one is digitization version 1, which is actually related to the introduction of the internet. And then digitization version 2, this one is related to the utilization of a smartphone. That I will explain more about it. Okay, so when internet was introduced, the technology basically changed from analog to digital. Okay, and then the producers, they know that now the music can be diffused through online instead of offline. Okay, so they can use computer or other sources, okay, in order to diffuse their music. Another thing, because there is a computer, there is a CD-ROM, the people, they can extract the music songs from CD, okay? Which means basically people, they just consume some music that they like a lot instead of buying the whole CDs. Long time ago, one album, like cassette or CD, whatever, usually it has like 8 or 10 songs, and usually 1 or 2 songs are good and others are not really good. And then people, they just buy the whole album in order to listen to 1 or 2 songs. But after the introduction of the internet, actually people just extract what they like and they just consume the music that they like a lot. Okay. And then digitization version 2, this is a little bit different. Basically, nowadays, everybody has smartphone in their hands. Okay, this is very different. When there is internet, in order to access to the internet, you have to be somewhere where you can use computer. But with smartphone, actually, you don't have any space restriction. You can you can enjoy some music, when you are on bus or on subway or elsewhere. Okay, basically, there's no space restriction. Okay. Also, if you think about domestic and international, okay, you can still utilize international service providers instead of domestic service providers. Okay, the people, they can enjoy music from other countries. Another thing, the way you consume music is very different from a long time ago. Long time ago, it is more like a radio, okay, and then cassette player and Walkman. Okay. However, this got changed a lot, and then the way you consume music is more like a computer, smartphone, and tablet PC. Which means basically, long time ago, the thing is very important. It's very more like in audio sound. However, nowadays, because you have screen, okay, with laptop, smartphone, tablet, PC, the visual image is as important as audio sounds. Okay? Another thing, because you have computer and you have smartphone, but the storage capacity is kind of limited, which means basically long time ago, they may download music from CD and they try to save in their hard drive. But with smartphone, tablet, PC, this kind of things is very difficult. You cannot save a lot of them. So basically that means instead of processing some music files, now it is better to access to service provider and then you just listen to music and that's it. Okay. Another thing, because of the internationalization, okay, the companies, they can use not only domestic providers, but also international providers. Okay? Working together with international providers, there may be some kind of synergetic networking effect. Okay? So this is very important. And then now, we will see how this changed the Korean music industry. Okay? When there is internet and then Korean people, they try to use internet a lot, the way they diffuse the music has been changed. Actually, it happened in 1987. There is a Korean musician. He was not well known at all, but he released his album online. Okay. Once he released his music online, it became really, really, popular. So the company, they realized the power of internet. So they began to release digital album in 1998. Okay. Also, they know that the way to distribute music online actually is more effective, so they use internet a lot to distribute music. Now, the Korean companies, they realize that it is not just the Korean people who listen to K-pop, but also people from other countries. Okay, so that means basically, in order to familiar with local people, okay, so different country, they believe that it is better to find somebody who can speak local language. So at the beginning, they try to find some Koreans who can speak Japanese, who can speak English, and then they consist of a band. Okay? Of course, as time goes by, these kind of things have changed. They sometimes just hire Thai singer, American singer, and Japanese singer, and Chinese singer. Okay, so this kind of things has changed significantly. Now, Korean companies realize that nowadays people, they don't buy one CD, but it is more like they just consume one music, okay? Instead of CD, just, one song. So they said, instead of spending a lot of energy to produce one album, why don't we focus on producing one really, really good music? So they try to enhance musicality, okay? In the earlier time, for Korean companies, it was kind of hard. So they do have a lot of collaboration with the European songwriters. For example, there's a lot of songwriters from Sweden and Finland and Denmark. Okay, for example, the SM Entertainment is the number one company, and then they produce a lot of music with the Ghost Generation and Big Bang. And then if you check, a lot of music are produced through the collaboration with Finnish, Danish, and Swedish musicians. So by collaborating, they can enhance the musicality. Okay? Also, nowadays, they know that it is not just one band or singer. If they have a lot of singer and a lot of band, then they know that it is better to increase the profits. They can increase the opportunity of success. Okay, so once there is very successful a singer or band, they can generate some revenues and profits. And by using the revenues and profits, they try to invest in order to have another band. So it is more like a Korean Jewel, like big companies. Now, because of the internet, then it's not just the Korean service providers who can diffuse music, but also international music service providers, they can do it. Okay, for example, like iTunes was interested in having a lot of K-pop, so they had to negotiate with Korean companies. So in this case, because of in order to have a lot of music from Korean companies, the iTunes, they pay more than Korean companies to musicians. Okay, so this one is helping people. At the same time, because the Korean K-pop can use international service providers, so the coverage or the access, okay, can be much easier than before. Now, this is very interesting because the way they consume the music has changed from audio to visual images. So basically using smartphone, computer, and tablet PC. So you are actually enjoying music with your ears and with your eyes, okay? So the visual images became really, really strong. This is why, there is a lot of dance, group dance and choreography. This is for, visual images. Also, some people, they just, criticize, K-pop bands, they doesn't matter if they are female or male, they put a lot of makeup, and then their, like a clothing is kind of flamboyant. Again, this is related to visual image. They want to highlight the visual image. This is why they put a lot of makeup on the face, and then they put on really, splendid, like clothing. Okay. Another thing is because there is a visual image became really important. Also, something is related to copyright. Okay. Now, people, they can copy, they can just download, and then Korean companies realize that maybe there's another way to detour the problem of copyright. Actually, this is a concert. Okay, so for Korean companies, the big revenue source is a concert. Okay, concert, they even show that online. Okay, so people can download music illegally, but they cannot do something illegally with concert. Okay, going to some concert or just watching concert online, it's a very different, experience. And the people, they just want to go to concert more and more once they enjoy it more and more. Another thing, as I told you before, because people use tablet PC and smartphone, there's some problem with the storage. So instead of having the music files in their devices, they try to access to internet service providers. In fact, Korea has this kind of service much earlier than other countries. Okay, so already early 2000s in Korea there is like a company called Soribada, and they try to diffuse music online. Of course, this is a lot advanced when we compare that kind of service with Spotify. So Korean companies, they try to do this kind of thing much earlier. Okay. Because the music industry is really dynamic. Okay. So it's not just big companies, but also a lot of other small companies, they try to be in this industry, and then they try to work a lot in order to produce good music and good band. Okay, so there's a high competition in Korean music industry, and then it is helping the industry to produce better music. Right. So basically, what I did is kind of emphasize the activities of companies. Some people, they argue, okay, so basically, Jimmyn Parc, what you're arguing is it is Korean companies, and they produce a lot of music, and they also foster the environment, and they make some kind of K-pop bands. All right. So they said, okay, it is more like a commercialized, and this is not good. Okay. Music is related to culture and art. So basically, this is not good. This is what they said. And then some people, they argue, okay, every K-pop band, they are just similar, they are the same. Okay. My argument is a little bit different. There is one source, and I try to check how many, the bands we do have in Korea. So as you can see here, 2009, we have 17. In 2013, we have 48. And then actually they stopped counting the number of bands since 2014 because there are too many appears and disappeared. So basically, we do have a lot of bands, K-pop bands. This is an interesting thing because if there is a lot of K-pop bands, and then if they do want to survive in the music industry, there is high competition and they have to differentiate themselves from others. So there is a certain level of creativity. Some people, they just criticize, okay, well, there's a big company like SM, YG, and JYP, and then they have really, really big company, and they just monopolize, okay? And they just produce the same music ever, okay? But you have to think about some other point. In fact, SM, YG, and JYP, they were like a really small company in 1990s. So within 2 decades or 3 decades, they became really, really, really big companies. And they produce a lot of things, right? Currently in Korea, we do have more than 500 companies in the music industry. And then they are really in competition, and they try to produce better music than others. Another interesting point is like income revenues. Okay, the SM Entertainment is #1 company in Korea. So basically, I checked how much they receive outside of Korea. Okay, as you can see here, this is a kind of outdated, but this is more, we make a lot of money from outside of Korea. Okay, the interesting thing is like, a lot of money is coming from actually Japan. The reason is Japan has really, really well developed copyright. So once people release music in Japan, and they can receive the amount of copyright fee. Okay, so it's not just Korean K-pop bands, but also musicians from other countries. They are utilizing or exploiting Japanese developed copyright system. Okay. This is why if you check in other classical music or musicians, there's a lot of Japanese special edition. Again, this is related to the copyright. Another interesting thing, people, they argue, well, there's some people, they just work a lot, but then it is not the singers or people individual, but it is more like the company, they receive a lot of money, okay, and they don't share it. In fact, this data is from the National Tax Service in Korea. And if you can see the singer's average income, you can see that since 2010, the income for the singers has increased significantly. So that means basically the music industry became really, really big. And then actually the companies, they do share their profits with their singers. Now, well, I just, ask you something interesting, okay? Can you please tell me what is the commonality or similarity between two guys? I'm sure you already know these two people. Anyone in chatting? What's the similarity, commonality?
Let's back to the chat, guys.
So quiet. Yes, tech company. Yeah, super duper billionaire. True. Okay, now, what is three? What's commonality? Let me add one more. Yeah, dropped college for Bill Gates and, okay, Western countries. And then something else? No, they don't listen to K-pop. Okay, now, what is the commonality and similarity between those five? I just wonder if you know the last guy. Oh, God, you don't know him? That's impossible. He's very famous.
Guess it.
This is the answer. Nope. You can see Emmanuel Macron. So basically, So what I want to show you is, he was a student at Sciences Po, where I am. Okay, now, what's the commonality among those people? Do you know these two guys? The last two guys? Public figure, yes. But, yeah, Jimmyn and RM of BTS, yes. Okay, leader. Yeah, world famous, yes. All right, okay. Let me talk this way. Now, people, we know the Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Emmanuel Macron, and then Jimmyn Parc, and RM, they are all famous. Yes, Twitter, yes. But you have to think about one thing, okay? People, they just highlight they are super duper, millionaire, whatever, and they are genius, and they know how to do business, and they know how to lead people. But you have to know one thing. As I showed before, Emmanuel Macron was once a student at Sciences Po. Jimmyn of BTS and RM, they were just like normal people, just like you. Okay? Now, back to Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and then Bill Gates, they were also just like you once. However, they work hard and then they know what is going on in the business and then they know what consumers want, and then they know the changes in the world, and then they are the one who embrace the change without any fear, and they worked really, really hard, and then in the end, they became really, really famous. Okay, which means basically you can be one of them in the future. All right. Now, what I want to argue is, if you know the Korea, again, the K-pop industry, some people, they highlight, okay, K-pop, Christian music, whatever, but so far what I have talked about is, K-pop was not really popular. However, they do a lot of things, okay? They accepted and adopted digitization. They are using digitization. They try to meet what consumer wants. And they already know how consumers, listen to music. So they analyze a bunch of things, and then they are the one who produce really, really interesting music nowadays. Also, when it comes to digitization, okay, they know that this is changing the world, and then they are the one who actively, embrace digitization, and then they do whatever they like. Or they know the changes in the societies, okay? So this is the meaning. I mean, there is something, and then you can actually change it. If you work hard, you can achieve that in the end, okay? All right, let me give you a conclusion. All right, some people, they argue culture is something inherited. My argument is no, culture is created, not inherited, okay? If you know what's going on with K-pop, probably some music industry of one country can do similar things, okay? Maybe it is kind of difficult to pursue, exactly the same route. However, what I mean is it is not impossible, okay? So if you know what to do with K-pop, and then you study well, and then you apply, and then maybe you can have similar effect in the end, okay? Regarding digitization, okay, if you know what is going on across the world, there's a lot of people who are afraid of digitization. Especially in the music industry, they said digitization is not good. This is increasing illegal, download, and this is violating the copyright law. Okay? However, digitization cannot, digitization, you cannot stop it, okay? As time goes by, you will see there's more digitization. So which means basically if you cannot avoid it, then you have to enjoy it. And the Korean culture industry, especially K-pop, they do the same thing, okay? They just embrace the digitization and they just utilize it in order to diffuse their music, in order to produce better music, in order to meet the expectation of consumers. Okay? Some people, they argue, hey, culture is related to national identity, and then, whatever. So the government support is very, very important. Okay? But what you see from the K-pop case actually is not the government, but it is more like companies. Okay? It is interesting because companies, they try to do a lot of things in order to meet consumers' needs. Of course, this is related to maximizing or creating value or profits. Okay? But when it comes to state, okay, country, if they are involved in cultural industries, usually they are not working to meet consumers' needs, but they try to do a lot of things in order to increase the brand name of a country. So this is very different. Okay, so what I argue here is in order to promote culture, maybe business activities is very important. And then actually you can see this kind of things from a lot of, industry and a lot of countries, such as the Hollywood film industry in the United States. Okay, this is my presentation today. And then I think it is time for Q&A session.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Parc, Jimmyn. It was a revealing lecture, illuminating lecture, a lot of food for thought. We have learned a lot, so thank you. And actually, it's quite amazing because in a 50 minutes lecture, you didn't mention the word Hallyu, Korean wave. That means that you are giving to us another approach, a different approach that we are familiar to, which is more related to soft power and the political uses of Korean pop. So you are really focused on industrial and all, and this change of the music market, that is facing this new digitalization era. So now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Esther Torres, Professor Torres, who is going to act as our discussant. So Esther, Professor Torres, whenever you want.
Well, thank you very much. I'm actually here mostly to intervene if there are no questions coming from the audience, but we have a very engaged audience. So probably I will have a very easy work today, which is excellent. There are many questions coming up. And well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for your presentation. I think it brings up many interesting food for thought, especially regarding the role of the state intervention in the cultural industries, but also on how we should be handling innovation in general and disruption, which is something, as you mentioned, that can go just beyond K-pop in this case. So coming from the chat, and first of all, I think there is a key question here regarding precisely state intervention. Juan is asking if you think that there is a further similarity between high-tech and K-pop, which is that sometimes liberalism, or making the industry free, can make huge concentrated monopolies. And although you mentioned in your presentation that there's room for more people, the truth is that until Big Hit, for example, broke all the rules, it was 3 companies who were dealing with the business. So how do you see this danger and how it was circumvented in Korea?
Okay, well, the monopolization is an interesting topic because it's not just in the EU, but also in Korea, there is some kind of debate over it. Some people, they believe that, okay, there's just a 3 company and then now there's 4, okay, including Big Hit and 5. Those 4, they just dominate the Korean music industry. But you have to know one thing, okay? It's not really dominating because they are not competing against domestic companies in Korea. Nowadays, because the competition is different from others. Long time ago, it is more like a domestic-oriented competition. But nowadays, it is outside the competition, outside of Korea. Okay, well, probably there's a lot of people who knows that, BTS tried to receive the Grammy Award. So basically, that means the competition is not just within Korea, but across the world. Okay. Also, they try to diffuse a lot of music, not just in Korea but others. Another thing, well, it looks like a monopoly, all right? But if you compare with other countries, actually other countries, they do have a similar situation. So this means basically it's not just Korean specific problem, okay? But again, I don't think this is a problem, okay? But another thing, if you go over Italy, okay, like Florence, Firenze, and then at the time it was like, Medici family, and they provide a lot of money to artists. And I never heard anyone who complaining about monopoly of Medici family for this kind of things. Then why they don't do anything with the Italian family, but they do that kind of things with Korean companies?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I think I completely agree with you that even in Korea, they're very much aware of this issue and it has been largely discussed. I'll continue with the economic part before moving on to cultural. And there's also a reference on the role of the state, of the government. So there's one question here by Mireia, who's asking, that was just before that, whether K-pop has been key in the application of soft power. And I think we can address this question from both perspectives, how the state has used K-pop as soft power, but also how the state has created an environment of soft power that can allow for things to go abroad. And I will include my own question here, if I may. And I might agree that maybe direct investments might not be a successful strategy. However, what about infrastructure? Because most of your concerns were around digitization, and I was in Korea in 2000, and I had a great internet connection. When back in Spain, I needed a telephone to connect to the internet. So is that the type of role the state should work? So I would like...
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for your question. That is very interesting. And I know that you know well about Korea. Okay, so this is excellent, actually. All right. It is true, okay? So basically in late 1990s, when Korea had economic crisis, actually at the time, the president in order to overcome the economic crisis, he said, okay, maybe in the future it's better to have something for IT industry, so ICT, okay, internet, information, telephone, telecommunication, okay, these kind of things. Yes, that is true. So he established a lot of internet infrastructure at the time. And then after a while, Korean companies were able to utilize this kind of things. Well, my argument, if you know the beginning of internet, actually it is not Korea, but it is more like France. And then the France was kind of famous for its Minitel. So they introduced this kind of things really, really advanced. They even argued that before the internet, France is the one who established these kind of things. Okay, so basically there is something, but then the French companies, they don't know how to utilize this kind of things. So you have to think about it. Another aspect, okay, sometimes some countries or some companies, when they face some kind of disadvantage, they try to overcome the problem. Okay, it is not just related to K-pop, but also related to other industries. For example, Nokia was once really, really strong in the mobile phones. One of the reasons, the Finnish company Nokia had, like a monopoly, almost monopoly in the mobile industry. This is because of Finland has a small amount of population, while the land size is huge. So basically for them, putting a lot of infrastructure for telecommunication, it costs a lot. This is why they try to develop, the mobile technology. This is actually related to K-pop, okay? I did not explain much, but in 1990s, the copyright was not really well respected in Korea. Okay, so when there is the internet, yes, when there was internet and the people use computer and they extract music from CD and cassette, whatever, the Korean music industry fell down almost 90%. Okay, so for music industry, it was a huge gain. Okay, so of course they had the same, activities. The internet is killing the music industry. The computer is killing the music industry. But of course they complained a lot. But there are some companies like SM and JYP, and then they realized, okay, now we cannot reverse the way of digitization. And now we have to do something. Okay, so they try to figure out some way around to overcome the problem. Okay, so just having infrastructure, it doesn't explain much. You have to think about some other things. All right. Again, one thing I explained before, the internet, nowadays, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook is over there. So it doesn't matter if you are from Sweden, Korea, or South Africa. If the internet is there and you can upload, you can do it. But still, okay, I know there is some differences in terms of internet quality, but still you can upload it, okay? However, you can see that there are some companies, like Korean K-pop companies, they upload their music whenever they like. But still, there are some companies like Japanese, they don't want to share the music online, okay? Because they still have, in old fashion, and they try to respect copyright. And then another question is related to the soft power. The K-pop industry being key in application of soft power of country. Okay. Well, as I told you before, soft power is somehow related to K-pop, yes. But initially, it was not K-pop, okay? That became really, really popular, but it was more like in the Korean drama series. And in Korean drama series, the Korean government, they did not support anything before, okay? So K-drama became really, really popular. And then it got diffused and it gained international fandom. Later, K-pop became really, really popular. And then once government realized K-pop is popular elsewhere, and then they began to do something else. Yes, this is related to, the soft power somehow, but, it is the government who helped to increase the soft power of Korea, or it is the company who work a lot in order to increase the soft power. And then you have to think about these kind of things. Some people, I know that there is a lot, they highlight the role of the government. Okay? But if you know how much the French government utilizes in order to promote their film industry, you will be surprised. They pour huge money, but then how many of you actually go to movie theater to watch French films nowadays? Even if they are available on Netflix, I don't think you're going to watch them.
Oh, come on. I agree with you. It's whether it's K-pop or soft power, what's the egg and what's the chicken. It's very hard to tell, and there are very different approaches. But I'd like to rescue another question by Andrea, is whether do you think that the development of K-pop in the last decade has made possible an improvement in the economic and geopolitical aspects of the country in the international scales? Like, has K-pop helped Korea become much more visible than before? And
okay, well, yeah, go ahead.
Just a related question that comes here is, as some people seriously think that this has been the case, what do you think will happen next? Is K-pop going to stay there, or are other industries replacing K-pop as the landslet of the soft power?
Okay, all right. Well, there's a lot of people, they argue, okay, K-pop helped the Korean economy. I heard that one. And then sometimes they just ask me, you know, can you give me some kind of number? The people, they would love to see the number, right? Yeah. One thing I argue, well, nowadays, you know, BTS became really, really famous group in the world. And then a lot of people, they know BTS. But how many of you actually know that the BTS, they were the, you know, they worked for LG smartphones model? Okay, LG smartphone hired BTS, and then they believe that this is helping LG smartphone sales. However, recently, LG just closed the smartphone business, and then they said this doesn't work at all, and we will not do the smartphone business at all. That means basically, if the smartphone's quality is good, maybe they can sell it more. But just using BTS doesn't explain much. Okay, so basically the quality goes first. Another thing, there is it's not just in the Korean, no, it's not just the BTS, but also BTS and the Blackpink, another group. Mm-hmm. Okay, actually, if you know what brand, okay, they are wearing for the clothes, okay, it is almost like French companies or Italian companies, Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Gucci, and then Christian Dior. Okay, are they really working for Korea, or are they working for, you know, something else? Okay, mm-hmm. I'm sure there's people who knows, you know, what is going on, and also BTS and then Blackpink and then a lot of Korean groups, they were supported by international companies, not just from Korean. Okay, of course. Still, it carries, okay, the name Korea, okay? So you have to think about it. Another one, I know that there's also a lot of people who love K-pop, but also there is backlash. Some people, they argue, oh, okay, K-pop is not good, and K-pop is just for females, and then K-pop, you know, it is some kind of like, you know, projecting like homosexuality. Sometimes they say this is boring and same project, whatever. So there is backlash also. Okay, so you have to calculate everything. Of course, you know, this is related to economy, but it is projecting the image of Korea, and then it is helping export. Still, if the product quality is not really good, then it doesn't matter. But it's not really helpful. Another thing about the future of K-pop. Yes, this is a very, very tricky question. Personally, I believe that if there is no intervention of government, I think this will be fine. Okay, as long as the companies, they try to enjoy the dynamics in the music industry, global music industry, and they try to meet the consumers' demand or needs, then this is fine. But usually companies, they have some kind of tendency to have complacent, you know, attitude once they are really successful. It's really dangerous. This kind of things a lot, other countries. Some countries, especially France, where I am, the directors and the musicians, they said, no, we don't care about consumers. We just produce what I like. And this kind of attitude is very dangerous. And I see that this kind of thing is coming nowadays in Korean music industry. And this is really dangerous.
Okay, so probably related to the consumer expectations and consumer needs. There were some voices that were very critical, especially of early Korean pop, of the lack of cultural appropriation and the cultural awareness in general. And also there has been quite a discussion on the lack of diversity sometimes, especially in the first groups. So do you think is that one of the issues that's going to be tackled in the future in order to make those international consumers claims?
Okay.
Or is it the opposite?
Well, I know that there's a lot of people, they said, okay, this is not Korean, this is not Korean, this is just copy of K-pop, this is copy of, American pop, or copy of, someone else's. There are just some people who argue that way. Yes, I agree. I will not deny the kind of things. But you have to think about what culture is, okay? It's several years ago, I went to Buñol in Spain. I'm not sure if you know Buñol, okay? And then this town is really famous for its famous tomato fight.
La Tomatina de Buñol, that's right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's
so I went there. Yeah, so I went there, Buñol, and then I met the people who organized this kind of event. So I had some kind of discussion. And I asked them, hey, how long this event has been here in Buñol? And is this traditional Spain thing? And then he said, oh, Mr. Parc, this is really traditional thing. And it has more than 1,000. And the tradition is long, something like that. That's what he said. And then,
from Roman Empire, right? From the Roman Empire, something like that, no? Yeah, it's a real tradition.
No, not that much, but he said almost 1,000. That's what he said. So in front of his face, I said, you're lying. Okay? And then he said, like, excuse me? And I said, you're lying. And then he said, how dare you say so? And then I said, because you're lying. Okay, and then he said, like, hold on a second. So you said you're from Korea and then you don't know anything about Western culture. And then how can you say that? And I said, because there is good evidence. Okay, if you check with the Wikipedia or, just internet, try to find the origin of the tomato. This is not from Spain. This is from Latin America. Okay, so if there is a tomato, this should be after Columbus. Okay, so that means basically they believe that this is Korean, Buñol traditional thing, but this is not. Also another thing, the Halloween. Nowadays, people they believe that this is a Canadian or like a Northern American, event, and a lot of countries, including Japan, Korea, and France, they try to avoid it, and they said this is like Americanization, and this is not good for culture. But if you know the origin of Halloween, actually this is from Celtic, event, like Basque, and then like Celtic people in the UK, and then actually this is the North American, countries. They are utilizing this kind of event for their own reason. Okay, so it's not really their traditional thing, but they believe that this is a traditional thing. Okay, talking about kimchi. Okay, it's kind of hot dish nowadays. But if you know kimchi, it said this is a Korean traditional one. Yes, it is. We believe so. But actually, something happened kimchi, and then the kimchi you have, the spicy one, it happened after the Imjin War between Korea and Japan in 16th century. So it's really, really short. Okay? So there is a lot of internationalization.
But
and then people believe.
Allow me to connect this idea with Evaramburu question about that. How decisive do you think the language of the lyrics is when labeling a song? K-pop, J-pop, C-pop. For example, K-pop artists releasing a Japanese version of a Korean song later on. So this issue of appropriation, what do you think about this? Just to collect, because I think that we are approaching to the end of the session and we have still, we have more, but three questions that maybe could be well, nice to say something. What do you think about this?
Well, okay, some people, they try to say like a K-pop, they consider K-pop as a special genre. Okay, well, I'm preparing a paper trying to show that this is not a special genre. Okay, basically K-pop is, as I explained before, A classical music, G classical music, and I classical music. Okay, we don't care about the nationality, but we do like classical music and we like the music. That's it. Okay, probably nowadays we argue this is K-pop, this is J-pop, this is C-pop, but several centuries later, they're gonna say there is pop music. Okay, and they're produced in Korea, in Japan, in China. That's it. Right?
Okay.
So this is very important, and you have to think about that part.
I have a secret question that was sent to me. So if you could comment a little bit more about the role of platforms, ecosystems, and the Korean music industry as success factors in K-pop, like maybe very briefly to just close the intervention, because as Blai said, we're very close to 8:30.
Oh, there's a call. I didn't hear the last part.
If you could comment on how Korea, the role of platforms, ecosystems, and the Korean music industry as success factors. I think because the development was very different from the one we had in Europe to a certain extent. And I think we could maybe with this answer close the session, because we are very close to 8:30.
Okay. Well, in the lecture, I said the success factor is not just a platform like SNS or YouTube. I didn't say that one, okay? I said this can be utilized by anyone, okay? So basically, it is like the initiative of a company or, how they utilize or strategic movement to utilize this kind of things, okay? The thing is like, still, it's not just the music industry, but also the way you face Netflix. If you compare what is going on between Europe and then Korea, it's completely different. Okay? In Europe, because a lot of people, they believe, especially the European parliaments, they believe that this is diffusing American culture, and they try to restrict it. On the other side, in Korea, yes, we do have the movement from government side, but the companies, they have totally different aspects. They said, all right, basically Netflix, they want to have a Netflix original, and they give a lot of money, they produce a lot of money, and then the Korean companies, they said, why don't you utilize Netflix money to produce films and dramas? Okay, so this is more like a mindset, how to utilize the platform. The same condition goes to everybody, but the reaction or response is very different by country and by company.
So thank you very much. I think that we are running out of time. So thank you very much. I see also that we have French students connected. So thanks to all of you. I guess our students from Professor Jimmyn Parc. By the way, congratulations. You have a quite handsome prime minister. Well, thank you very much, Jimmyn Parc. It was great. It was a very interesting lecture. We learned a lot. Thank you very much. Next time we'll be in Barcelona, face-to-face in person. And thank you very much, Esther Torres, for acting as discussant. So thanks a lot. And now I give the floor to Rafael Bueno just to close this session.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Blai, and especially to Professor Parc for this lecture, quite very interesting. And unfortunately, time flies, and we have to finish here. So just thank you once again, Professor Parc and Esther, Blai and David. Un grand merci aussi pour tous les étudiants français qui sont inscrits pour cette conférence. Je voudrais le dire aussi merci à tous. Et we continue in touch. And once again, thank you to all of you. And we keep in touch. Thank you. Bye.